Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a special online event today. It's called Balancing Life's Chaos with Qigong, 18 ancient Wuji Hundun movements for more productivity, greater optimism, and better health. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm really blessed to be with you here, getting to, frankly, drink in some deep, relaxing, opening, centering movements and practices from Qigong from a truly remarkable teacher. Is one of our favorite Shift faculty members in the Qigong area. Her name is Daisy Lee. She's the founder and principal teacher of Radiant Lotus Qigong. She's taught many programs for Shift, and I think what she offers is particularly vital in this time where there's a lot of outer world tumult and chaos and fear, and using Qigong as an opportunity to really come home to ourselves, come home to our center, to transmute that outer chaos into inner calm in a really beautiful way. So you're in for a treat today, and welcome to today's program, Daisy.
Thank you, Stephen. Hello, everyone. I'm so pleased and happy to be here with you again.
Well, we're going to have this hour together, and I want everybody to be prepared, hopefully, to participate in the practices as well. Daisy's going to lead us in a deep practice. It helps us to apply the Qigong practices and principles to centering ourselves. And then we're also going to have a chance to go much deeper with her in a brand new program called The Art of Wuji Hundun Qigong. So more to come on that towards the end of the hour. So Daisy, let's start this journey today with a little bit of your backstory. I think particularly you're somebody that, from my perspective, emanates the calm and peacefulness and centered and groundedness in a really remarkable way. And I just want to maybe get a little bit of how you cultivated that and through the practice of Qigong.
Well, I think part of that is growing up in a big family. I'm one of 6 siblings, one of 6 children in my parents' family. And being in the middle may have something to do with that. But there was always chaos, organized chaos, because we were working on our parents' greenhouses and on the land. And my parents were immigrants, so they came in the 50s to Canada, and just learning a new culture and not really learning the language because we were on the land and quite isolated. And so the chaos of anything new is just built into not just to immigrants, but I think in every life. And when you become an interpreter for your family, or you have to help them settle into a new environment, because I was born in Canada. And so I was privy to both languages, the Southern Chinese dialect and the English, once I started going to school to learn English.
So let's talk about how you came to Qigong as a practice then.
Well, my Qigong practice was as a result of both my father and my husband, my late husband, becoming ill with different cancers. At that time, there was a Chinese doctor who's also Western GP who came to the hospital once he heard about my bone marrow campaign for my husband. And that was the entree into a very, very busy and chaotic time. And so when we talk about chaos, it's circumstances that we can't control. They're beyond us, and yet how we respond during those times is pivotal to the peace that emanates out to others, but also within ourselves. Most importantly, it has to start with ourselves. And so that initial learning of this Chinese doctor that came into the Western hospital, he was showing me a technique that could help take down the severe pain in my husband's abdomen. And I was so surprised by how really, to me, it felt so miraculous that even without touching his body and working off the surface, he taught me a Qigong technique that I could use to help him. And at that time, he was on a lot of pain meds, morphine, codeine, and at least one other one. And after using this technique, it downgraded the pain so immensely, like from a kind of plus 10 on the Richter scale down to a 2 or 3. And then eventually he just completely went off pain medications. So I saw what the potential was of Qigong. And even though he passed on from the side effects of the chemotherapy and radiation, and of course that includes the leukemia, I decided to take in further studies and really immerse myself, because I thought, here is something that I've just learned that actually makes a difference. It doesn't require medication. It brings the body back into homeostasis and balance, and at the same time brings peace into our bodies. So I was so astounded and intrigued by what little I knew even then, that I decided that if one technique could do so much, what would happen if I learned broadly, like a full system? And that was the beginning of my training, Stephen. I ended up going to China to learn Qigong. I had a teacher that was Chinese, American, Chinese Canadian, that also I learned from initially. But I really wanted to go to China to go to the roots of Qigong, to see what does this do to a huge population like China. How do they incorporate this healing system that is truly an art? And I'll share a little more about the Wuji Hundun system if you would like to learn about this. It's actually an 800-year-old system of Qigong, and comes from the family lineage of Master Duanzhi Liang. He was my now late teacher. He was 107 when he passed in 2017. And, his family were all martial artists and healers, TCM doctors, herbalists, and they protected the royal families, the emperor, last emperor of China, as well as the royal families. So at that point, only the martial artists and the protectors knew of the system. Of course, Master Duan's family as well. And incredibly, that system has been maintained over 800 years. And it was initially a martial system. So it was used in hand-to-hand combat, also sword combat, warfare on the ground. But there was also the belief that if one of your colleagues gets hurt in the field, on the field, then you must also know how to heal them. You want to save, your friends and colleagues. And so it became, even though it started as a martial arts type of Qigong, it transformed into a healing system as well. So the same movements, but done in a different way with a different consciousness, becomes this Qigong system, this Wuji Hundun.
What a fascinating backstory. And I love the evolution from a martial system into a healing system, which is very much what we need to go through as a whole world. And it's a great testimonial that your master lived to 107. So maybe you can set a little bit of foundational understanding of what differentiates Wuji Hundun Qigong from other lineages as a sort of philosophical or practical perspective. And then we can eventually get into a demonstration that can benefit us now.
Okay, I would love to, Stephen. Thank you. Well, Wuji Hundun, because its primary goal now is healing, but in the past, because of the martial aspect, it was to help with flexibility and openness of the body, of the tissues, and absorption of nutrients from our environment. But I should probably take you through a little earlier to what the word Wuji actually means. And in the Chinese pictogram, it's this big circle. Some people call it a Zen circle or an Enso circle, but it's represented as this big empty circle. So Wuji is that space before life. It is emptiness, nothingness. but it also represents potential. And so in that space, anything can happen. Then comes the Hundun. Hundun is, the simplest way to describe it is chaos, or in my dialect, it means confusion, dizzying confusion. And so when you have these two merge, the potential of empty space and the trigger, the spark of when nothing becomes something, it's that creation cycle, actually. So when the two merge, something happens. And so we were actually speaking about, evolution in a sense, when life begins, when nothing becomes something, and you get the separation of yin and yang, light and dark, night and day. And so it appears like the opposites, but in fact, once they start merging, there is a sort of collaboration and a refinement in that process. So in a sense, refinement or cultivation. The cultivation is what is up to us. So in his system, Master Duan's system of 18 movements, it always begins with sunrise, just like in our days. And it ends with sunset, but the real word for that in Mandarin is the return. So it's a complete cycle in that circle, and really represents how our world operates. Whether anything that lives on this planet, there is a cycle of life, a cycle of a day, a cycle of 24 hours. And if we respect that macrocosm that surrounds us, then we start to understand our interplay with nature is what really informs us. There are these movements that work in spirals and circles rather than direct lines. There's not a great deal in nature that is so straight. Yeah, we can make it that way, but most of nature around us works in spirals and circles. And you see it in our molecular structure in a drop of blood. You see it in the fractals in, like a cauliflower, or a flower. You see all these fractals. And it is a reminder of how we can operate. And so if we're not too direct, we don't stab or jab or, are too brutally honest even in our words, because words can be stabbing and hurtful, then we start to understand, well, how do you bring peace and calm to a situation? What is it about this system that is different than other systems? And it is this appreciation for the natural movement of the universe, and how we as people need to move in the same way, how we operate in the same way, to do no harm, or to at least do as little harm as possible.
It's a very profound philosophical foundation, and I love this sort of that we're synchronizing ourselves with a natural way of being rather than sort of an unnatural one. So I know you also wanted to share a little bit about the journey of your teacher, Master Duan, and his intention of why he and his journey of really bringing this to the West. Well,
Master Duan, he had never been in the West until 1998, and I was one of the people that was responsible for supporting him to come to the West for the first time. And it was because in China, there are many systems of Qigong, but this family lineage, it would be forgotten easily if his own family, it's mostly his wife that practices the system. And to not have that proliferate is like the end of a dynasty. And so he wanted it for use by the common people. So at one time, it was used only by royalty and protection of those who were in the elite class. But he was a very grounded person. In fact, he lived on the basement floor of a high-rise apartment building in Beijing, and had a tiny little kitchen. But in that tiny kitchen, he produced the most amazing meals. And Master Duan was this master of many things. Besides being a culinary chef, he was also a martial artist. And he was a swordsman. He used all the Chinese implements that were used in martial arts. But ironically, he didn't like Tai Chi for this reason alone. It's not because it wasn't beautiful, but he felt like in Tai Chi, you always do these movements in this order. And 108 movements, they're done in the same order as your practice routine. But he said, but the world is not like that. It's not linear. The world is very chaotic. And we need to know how to respond in kind to bring balance back at each juncture. And so his 18 movements, there's the sunrise and sunset, always done and as the first movement and the final movement. But the 16 movements in between, once you learn them, they get mixed up. And what dictates what comes next after the first movement is what is happening in your day? What kind of chaos or what kind of pain in your body? Because pain can also create chaos in one's body and emotions. And so he would say to you, use these 16. You don't need to do all of them, but choose the ones that are going to be useful for you that day. It doesn't matter the order. Just maintain the first and 18th in their proper place, out of respect for the way the universe operates. But the rest you can move and mix and use to your advantage. And in a sense, that's like wartime thinking. Use it to your advantage, how you apply this information.
I love it. It feels like you just got a wealth of stories you could share as well. But why don't we take some time now and actually have you demonstrate the whole 18 movements, and then we can talk a little bit more about it, maybe share another story or two.
Sure. I'll demonstrate 2 movements, Stephen. It's not possible to do the 18 in such a short time together, but the first movement is called Si. It's spelled S-I, but it's, Si. And just to share with you the thinking behind it, it means to tear or rip, but it doesn't look like it. So that's the deception of the movements from martial to healing, self-healing. So I'm going to go and show you this first movement. Okay. So just release and relax any tension from the body before you begin any movement. And we'll start this one with our feet hip width apart, or shoulder if you're broader at the shoulders. And I'm going to place my hands facing the abdomen. And this is a body posture that we begin with and end with in the Wuji Hundun set. This is actually the rest position. And so there's a kind of buffering field around the body. And the Si movement looks like this. The fingertips all come together. And we gently plug them into the lung points below the clavicle. So it's actually a natural place where they actually rest once they come in. And I'll show it to you, and then I'll explain a little later. Left elbow. I'm going to just stay focused on the left elbow. I'm doing the reverse image. And we lift the elbow a little higher each time. And a little higher each time. So this means that if you have limited mobility and you can't get your elbow above the shoulder, just stay at this height, okay? Or even smaller if you can't raise it to that level. And so here we go. Now we're plugged in. Inhale. Draw a big circle. Exhale. The right side. Inhale. Lift the elbow. Reel it around and back. And higher. Your feet are grounded and centered. Your legs and knees are up front. And we're just winding to the back and around. Inhale up. If you can go higher, lift the elbow right up. Wind it all the way back and around. Left, right side. Inhale up. You might hear a pop. And again, inhale up. Exhale around and back. Inhale and exhale around and back. One more on each side. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Now, both elbows are parallel. Roll down and come back into the rest position. So that's the Su movement. And you might start to even see why that would have been a martial movement, right? So if someone is in front of you and they get too close and you're in close range with each other, all you would have to do is click and reel the energy out of the way. So it might be under the chin and around and move in these circles to deflect any person or object coming at you. Reel around and come back into this peace position. Okay, that is the Su movement. I'll now just go right into the Kun movement. And Kun means tie or bundle or bind. And you'll understand when you see the movement again, how that might apply to this movement. Okay, starting in the rest position, we open to the sides, palms facing down at first. Turn a little to the back. One hand, the front hand, comes up through the center line and in front of the chest, while the back hand, I'm going to turn around so you can see, protects the Mingmen point or the lower back. So we can go higher later, but at this stage, this is the movement. And there's about one hand's width between your hand and your body, the center of your chest. So it's meant to protect the front of the chest. And we press towards the open hand and turn the shoulder, turn the neck, turn the eyes, and untwist to center. Then it's the opposite side, to the back of the hand. Twist, look back comfortably without over twisting to your body's comfort level and return. Okay, we'll do that again. Pressing into the open hand, leave your knees up front, and come back to center. Twist to the back of the hand. You notice that the hand is still in the center of the chest. Okay, relax everything down. The arms spread out. We do the opposite side. Front hand rises up through the center line, pressing, and the back of the hand protects the Mingmen and the lower back. Pressing towards the open hand. Exhale. Inhale back to center. Pressing back. Exhale. Inhale back to center. Do one more on each side. Exhale, press to the open side. Inhale, return to center. Remember to keep the knees up front. You're just twisting from the waist, then the shoulders, then the neck, and head. And return to center. Open the arms and float the hands down. Bring it into the lower dantian. And stay here for a moment just to feel the opening of the shoulders in the front and back. We usually do it multiple times, so this is just a teaser. And then shift your weight to one side. Come back in. Right hand forms a fist. Left hand forms an open palm. And this represents compassion and mercy over aggression. And we do a gentle bow. That is more of a martial finale. Okay, so that was a sample of, Si and Kun, these two movements that are part of Master Tuan's 18-movement Wuji Hundun system.
You did a little bit in there of like talking about the symbolism of the sort of the peace or peace overcoming the sort of opposition. So a little bit about like how are these movements shifting our energy? What's the intent, and how is this helping us to metabolize or transform chaos?
Very good question, because there's very few systems, or I shouldn't say, since I'm not going to judge other systems, but this system in particular, because it has martial roots, it has this dynamic, this very yin-yang dynamic, where it folds in both healing and the potential for self-defense. And so this is about balance, because there are some systems of Qigong that may appear very flowy and beautiful, and that's fantastic, because we so need that these days. Some people who know my Radiant Lotus Women's Qigong will probably understand there's a flowing kind of gentleness to the practice. But in Wuji Hundun, what it does is help us refocus on this potential. Sometimes, and it evokes our higher self. So in a conflict, when there is potential conflict, we can easily get very impatient and angry and say and do things that we may regret. And what is so relevant in today's time, when there is so much adversity that we're faced with, we need to return again and again to this kind of balance, composure, greater, higher wisdom. If we're always operating on this simple plane of, do or die, or reducing ourselves just to this human element, to this human body, there's so much more to life than that. And in a sense, Wuji Hundun can become a spiritual practice. It's like the spiritual warrior practice is what I think of when I think of Wuji Hundun. And so how does it deal with chaos? I think this is a very relevant question. One of the stories I'd like to remind people, if you ever heard in the news about Captain Sully and the miracle over the Hudson. And it was a story, a true story, about this airplane full of people that were ascending, flying off. And before he could get too far, a flock of geese entered the engines, and both engines failed. And so he was in a pretty dire predicament, because he had a plane load of people. He luckily maintained his composure amidst the chaos. He evoked that higher self. All his years of training came into play. Rather than freaking out and making the chaos even worse, he chose to call on that training, call on that higher self. Not one life was lost. So that is the potential when you can call upon that focus. I like to say, in a chaotic situation, you'll either fight, flee, freeze, but there is another F word. Not what you think. It's focus. And having that focus is so imperative. And Master Dwan always taught about focus. He always tried to help us to understand that without focus, you have no concentration, no training. You don't ever really cultivate. You can do movements, but what is the intention of this movement? How do you apply this movement? How does it open the shoulders? How does it, redirect the body's energy and always return to center? So it is really, it's not only about resilience, building resilience, but I think, Stephen, it also builds spaciousness in one's thinking so that we can see a potential solution when we're confronted by chaos. I also think that, it brings in compassion when there's a situation that can really get out of hand, but we continue time and time again to come back into our balance and hold that potential for compassionate action, rather than letting our emotions override and create chaos in our bodies. So ultimately, it is not just a personal reason that we would practice, but for the greater good of all, we would practice. And, that was certainly part of what he was teaching, what Master Dwan was teaching. He was a tough taskmaster at times, but you couldn't help but respect him. He also had a great sense of humor. And when you are able to engage with humor, I think it changes the whole energy in the room.
Well, I want to circle back with what you said around that it changes the spaciousness in your thinking, and that also that he had quite a good sense of humor. And so one of the things I think may not be as evident to people with Qigong is that when you're learning to move in this much more mindful, connected, energetic way, it's like you are creating new pathways in your whole body, mind, and spirit that open you to more freedom too. And I'd love for you to speak a little bit about that, how it's not just about directing energy in a particular place for healing, but there is a kind of a freeing up or a liberating you from different patterns of movement that kind of keep you entrenched in certain ways of thinking and behaving.
Yeah, Stephen, that's so true that we can often go into our default mode. And the default is what we were raised on. It may not be the most helpful thing. And so when you connect with the universal resources that are around you, you look to nature. And one of the things that Master Dwan was always reminding us of is the earth below and the heavens above. And that we are in a sense a speck of dust amidst the cosmos, but we have an impact. And so all of that training was to compel new energy to come in, but the positive energies, you could say. And that's why, so compassion was so important, that once you've taken care of yourself and those that you love, you must extend it out to others. So when he, in his TCM clinic, in his traditional Chinese medicine clinic, he would have people come in that just couldn't afford to receive treatment. And he would just have them trade. They would bring him fruit or $1, just to say that there was an exchange of energy between them for the healing. And so there was a lot of pro bono work, a lot of kindness and compassion in this man. And on the not flip side, but on the yang side, was that if someone was arrogant and challenged him to a duel, some of these martial artists still do that, but he was so much older. When I met him, he was in his 90s. And so in a New York second, he would have them flat on their backs. And it was just to prove a point that, if you have the audacity to challenge a master, be prepared. And be be prepared to take a fall, but be prepared to have your arrogance knocked down, because he was very careful about who he taught. As open as he was, and he wanted these teachings to reach the West, he also thought that information in the wrong hands can be a detriment. And so, he gave this information to people who he thought were responsible. And I'm honored to be one of those people. And, feel that by carrying this forth in this time, especially now that he has passed on, that I'll keep it alive, at least in the West.
You're certainly spreading it with a lot of reverence right now, so thank you for that. I know you're demonstrating the two movements that we learned today, and you said there's 18 in total with sunrise and sunset. I wonder if you could give us a little bit more, paint a picture of that full panoply, and how do they kind of work together to create a really holistic approach to our body, mind, and spirit?
Yes, by all means. Stephen, the 18 movements, and if you look at 18 movements is, it's two sets of 9. And when you add the 8 and 1 together, you have 9. And so in numerology, this is the number of royalty. And so it is, you speak about reverence, it's about revering life itself. So when you have the means to do a practice that enhances your life, you have an opportunity and perhaps even a responsibility to share this information with others. And so encapsulated in those 18 movements is various methods of becoming more flexible, responding with greater intelligence, with this kind of grace and elegance that is the human body in its potential. So you might have lost mobility from staying at the computer for these last couple of years, or you might have lost traction in your thinking because everything is just right here in this little box. But what Master Tuan loved was we must, to, as often as we can, practice these movements because it helps us appreciate nature. Look at the Kun movement, where we're scanning the horizon as we turn. It's not just for enemies as it was used in its earlier time, but it's appreciate the beauty that surrounds you. Appreciate the beauty of your body's ability to move in these beautiful figures, these rounded, more natural shapes, and open up the sinews and ligaments and muscles and tendons of the body. Bring more oxygen in, release more tension. Always, he was reminding us, release the tension from the shoulders, because because he was a fighter, with wielding swords and implements, you had to have a strong upper body, yet you had to be also incredibly grounded to be able to wield such heavy weapons. So that's one of the reasons. But for the most part, I would say that all of this is a way to reduce stress and come back to a relaxed state of being. So you can see, like Captain Scully did, where is the opportunity here? How do I respond to the chaos and bring the plane back in and, support people's survival? And it's always, these things. There's maybe if you want, I can share another movement. It's called To, and we nickname it snake hands because of all these movements that resemble like a serpent in the best way, because it represents change. Yeah, so I'll share that with you too. So again, we start in this rest position, but in this snake hands, the hands come to the sides, And even though I said we don't go in straight lines, we might start in this straight-ish line, but look how it curves overhead. I keep my hand up at all times. So I'll do that one again. It's an offering. Receiving as we come in above the head. Releasing as we come around. And we do the opposite hand as well. We offer. We receive, bring it into the center of the body overhead, and we come in. But what is really happening from a martial perspective? This is a jab to the throat, a release from a hold, release again, because they might have grabbed your hand and you come in. So you see how this flexibility would be very important, both strength and flexibility. And then you start to learn to do it with both hands simultaneously, escaping, but also, honoring this ground force below, that the gravity that keeps us steady on the earth. And so this is one that he was quite famous for. And you would always come back in. Often the closing movement is what we call the yin-yang palms, the wuji palms. And the hands would come one over the other. The fingertip of the thumb and pinkies would come over each other and touch. And then we would take a step back and bow. Yeah, and so there's symbolism. There's symbolism in every aspect of the movement. And I think it's really fun because, some people perceive Qigong as a very more yin practice because its main goal is healing, self-healing. And so when you get into the martial aspects, which are the yang aspects of a movement, it just brings a little more balance to what we do. And I always found that his system was very joyful and playful, and really resonated with me because I have that side in me that I don't often, growing up in a very serious Chinese family, immigrant family, my family were quite serious because they had a lot to contend with 6 children to raise and greenhouses to look after, all these plants and food, to look after that we were supplying the public with. And so I think that this sense of play, even in at this age, 59, that I feel like, wow, if I continue this practice, I can be like Master Duan, at 107, still having this lightness and yet this discipline, and being able to share the loving compassion and yet this strength, this inner core strength that I think is very needed in these times, and perhaps in all times.
I think you're absolutely right. It is in all times, and we're in a time of a lot of heightened chaos and craziness in the outer world. So what a gift. And I really feel like you have a good shot of making it to 107 and being the kind of joyful spreader of these teachings and practices that you already are. So I want to spend some time talking about the deep dive course that we are going to offer with you, Daisy. And so this is really a unique opportunity. This is, as to the best of my knowledge, this has not been taught anywhere else. This is really a unique way to access a transmission of an 800-year-old body of knowledge that really has, and practice that has the potential to be very life transforming and to turn these chaotic times into times of creative joy for you. So it's called The Art of Wuji Hundun Qigong, Transforming Chaos into Creative Joy. It's going to be a 7-week training, and you can find it laid out in detail at artofqigongcourse.com. Qi is Qi, artofqigongcourse.com. There's no prerequisites for this. You don't need to have a Qigong practice already. Daisy will be taking you through foundational practices and steps, really translating these 18 movements into a practice that you can really make your own and use and adapt and modify and flow with what emerges in life in a new way. So Daisy, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about this program.
It's a 7-week. So, each week I'll be doing 2 or 3 movements so that by the end of our time together, you'll have the foundation of Wuji Hundun Qigong. And the last week we'll do all the practices together, but each week you'll be learning 2 or 3 to add to, the complete 18. And as I said, we always start with the first movement, which is Zhao, which is sunrise. And then we'll go on to 2 more, but the third one of that first week will be the return or sunset. And so you get that, perception of the cycle of life. Then in module 2, we actually talk about the role of gravity in chaos. And that's a really fun one because we're learning about how the earth supports us and to also trust in our body, the steadiness and the calm mind, the emotion settling, and how gravity plays a role in that so that we have that internal dignity. So 3 movements on the second week. And then module 3 is the yin-yang theory within Wuji Hundun. And that will be a really fun one too, because we're investigating and exploring what is yin yang, and we're going through examples of that. And within that symbol, there is a seed of dark in the light and a seed of light in the dark. And you're going to understand what that means, because nothing is pure darkness, nothing is pure light. Yeah, so it's all about balance. We'll do a few movements that week as well. Module 4, we go deeper into this yin-yang concept. It's such a deep and expansive understanding of what yin-yang, this Taiji Tu symbol means. But it is really the law of opposing forces and how this brings life together. So we will explore that. The Kun movement is part of that week, amongst others. And module 5 is I've used the symbol of bamboo to reflect what module 5 is about. And it's, bamboo can be used for so many uses. It is so flexible that it can be bent into various shapes for furniture, for almost any, even into clothing. They spin bamboo into clothing or textiles. But it is so strong that they can put up high rises and do that in Asia, in China and Japan. And so you're going to understand how to be like bamboo. Flexible yet strong, and strong enough to even walk away from confrontation. Module 6, we're connecting the realms as a human life evolving on the planet, and really seeking to understand how we fit into the macrocosm. And, especially because in these times, we are really relying on modern conveniences. But what happens? How do we slow down enough to capture the information for the larger picture? And so we connect the microcosm with the macrocosm and find a new path through the woods. And then the final week, module 7, is an integration and celebration. So we do all 18 movements together, and then when you go home, you start to mix the 16 in between the 18 and start to really go into deep practice. We take out the organic Prosecco or Guanyin tea, and we celebrate the 7 weeks that we've had together.
Well, what a beautiful offering. And it's really clear it's going to be not only practical, but really also just joyful to participate in this and really have practices that we can carry with us moving forward in life. So I'll share a little bit more about the program. So again, you can find the full program laid out in detail at artofqigongcourse.com, artofqigong, Qigong course.com. So you get not only the 7 90-minute live sessions with Daisy, which includes time to do demonstrations and practices, also time to have your questions addressed by Daisy directly. You're also going to get video and audio recordings of every session. This is particularly important because the movements are sometimes very subtle, and getting them right can take some practice. And so you'll want to be able to refer back to those and really reference those in the future. You're also going to have word-for-word transcripts that you can easily refer back to, as well as small group time to connect with other participants and a weekly Facebook community to deepen your overall journey. On the page at artofqigongcourse.com, you'll also see there's some extra bonuses to enhance the value that Daisy's been generous with. There's a Qi with Plant Medicine. This is a video dialogue between Daisy and David Crow, our resident expert in herbal medicine. So it's called Qi with Plant Medicine. And next bonus is scientific studies on the health benefits of Qigong and Tai Chi and their relationship to traditional Chinese medical therapies. That's a video teaching from Daisy, as well as an audio teaching from Daisy, the 3 Hearts meditation. You want to share a little bit about the 3 Hearts meditation, Daisy?
Well, we have 3 dantians, and the dantians are energy centers. And each of those centers has a heart, you could say. It's a symbol of the flowering of, first of all, the physical human body and the birth of creation in the lower dantian. Then the flowering of the heart for growing our compassion and even self-kindness if you haven't been kind to yourself, and how that helps us and our society flourish. And then the heart of wisdom and this higher self that is always attempting to evolve. And sometimes we might get a little bit stuck. And so this is to help open up these centers so that when they're all in alignment, they help us flourish. We help ourselves flourish. And so that meditation is a way to bring you back into your vertical alignment as a human, dignified human being on this planet that has the capacity to flourish in all ways, in the heart, in the body, in the mind and spirit.
It's a beautiful extra bonus to enhance the journey for folks. We have one special bonus. It's actually 7 bonuses in one that you get when you sign up by midnight tonight. And that includes 7 sessions from our Qigong Global Summit featuring some of the most preeminent teachers of Qigong in our day, including Daisy Lee, including Robert Peng, Sharon Smith, Roger Yanka, Fei Li Yip, Master Ming Tung Gu, and Lee Holden. You get all 7 sessions when you sign up by midnight tonight. We'd like to do that as a way to encourage you to make a decision now while you're here or you're connecting with Daisy and doing the practice, and so you're not distracted by the rest of life. And when you choose to move forward right away, which is ultimately going to bring a lot of benefit in your life, you have an extra incentive to do so. We've kept this whole package and whole journey really accessible. It's just 3 payments of $109, or you save 10% when you pay in full up front with 1 payment of $297. So the course starts June 27th and runs Mondays at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. And I do say that you can always get the full value of a program, even if you can't make those live times, because the recordings are available right away. You can participate with the transcripts, the community, and really adding this to your transformational library for years to come. So we've had quite a number of programs with Daisy. She's always beloved as a teacher. You can see what a gentle and sweet and loving presence she offers with this practice, and a very authentic transmission of wisdom from her lineage and teacher Master Duan to you at home, wherever you are. So you'll see on the page at artofqigongcourse.com, artofqigongcourse.com, there's a lot of great testimonials from people who have gone through a program via Shift, and just really, people just rave about her as a teacher. So you're going to be in great hands, and you're going to get some practices that are really practical for navigating these times, and also help to activate higher echelons of your consciousness, a kind of a spiritual awakening through Qigong that leaves you more embodied, more free, and healthy, and it gives you a good shot at living to be a vibrant presence on the planet at 107 as well, as Master Duan was able to do. So again, you can find all the details at artofqigongcourse.com, Qigong course.com. So Daisy, we have a couple minutes left. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks that we haven't today? And then, your final invitation to join you to go further in this beautiful practice.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm just completely honored to be here again and to be sharing this new but ancient practice with you so that you can also be empowered and handle the chaos a little better is my intention for you. And I wish everyone, good health, vibrant health, and look forward to seeing you in the very near future. Take good care out there.
It's just been a blessing to be with you. I feel like it's taking a warm bath in a sea of bliss and joy just to be in your presence. And thank you so much for the teachings and practices you shared today. And I know people will be in great hands.